powerful episode of She Decides, host Staci Swiderski sits down with Jill Hardy Heath, President and CEO of Heart of America, a national nonprofit reshaping what equity in education truly means. With more than 2 decades of experience, Jill has transformed HOA from a small literacy-focused initiative into a movement impacting over 2.5 million students and families across the country. From partnering with powerhouse organizations like the Denver Broncos, Verizon, and Under Armour, to being recognized by Forbes, the Aspen Institute, and the White House, Jill's leadership has redefined what's possible when passion meets purpose. A Yale Women's Leadership Program graduate and recipient of the President's Volunteer Service Award, Jill also brings wisdom from her corporate roots managing Target's award-winning School Library Makeover program. Staci and Jill dive into the realities of creating systemic change, the power of cross-sector partnerships, and the responsibility leaders hold to open doors for the next generation. Jill's message is clear: when children are given opportunity, support, and vision, their possibilities are limitless. This is an episode for leaders, dreamers, and anyone committed to building equity and legacy through action. Because when she decides to create opportunity, she changes the future for generations. Welcome, everybody, to our next episode of She Decides. I am Staci Swiderski, your host, and I am delighted to introduce our guest today. We have Jill Hardy Heath. She is the president of Heart of America, which was founded back in, was it like 27 years ago? 1997, I believe, correct?
Correct.
So a long time. Yeah. So you have been a very busy woman. So thank you again for joining us today. Let's jump in and really get started with learning more about you, Heart of America, and all of your accomplishments. So let's talk a little bit more, Jill, about how you've transformed Heart of America from literally a literacy-focused nonprofit into a national force of education equity. So let's talk more about that. And then what really fueled your vision to just dive in and expand the mission?
Well, first and foremost, I'm a firm believer that we all have a purpose. And at a very early stage in my young adulthood, I knew that working in the community was very important to me. And over the course of my tenure, I've had a chance to work in nonprofit, corporate, and nonprofit. And with Heart of America, I'm actually the second president. The founder, Angie and Bill Holland-Menderes, founded and had an incredible vision and 28 years ago to really focus on extraordinary young people doing amazing things in community. And they identified some amazing children who were actually creating their own nonprofits, raising money for cancer, for animal shelters, etc. And they became Heart of America ambassadors.
I love that.
And thus the name, so that we really do put our head and our heart into the work we do, whether it's in the public, private, or civic sectors, and that we are a solution to some of our society's greatest problems. And so fostering that early on with these young people was very important for the organization. And the organization then evolved, actually, with the ambassadors going into schools across the country and seeing the inequity. Not all schools are built similarly or alike. They're very different and vastly different across the entire country. And really that is due to a number of factors: urban settings, rural settings, et cetera. And we can talk more about that in a bit. But so these children were determined to make a difference. And so quickly, Heart of America listened and responded and created some solutions with these ambassadors, with focusing on books, getting age-appropriate, culture-appropriate, and time-appropriate books on library shelves, many of which were bare across the country.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah. And bringing school supplies to teachers' classrooms and also students in their home. So this quickly then morphed into focusing on education in 2 ways. education resources, those books, those vital school supplies, and then also spaces. And we can talk about the spaces in a bit.
Well, how exciting too, because again, you have been the president since 1997. I mean, and realistically, the awareness since then, I mean, with social media now and just all of
Yes.
that around us, it has changed, drastically since 97. I mean, the amount of people and
Mhm.
children that can be reached now has to be just enormous.
Yes, absolutely. And from we started as a very small grassroots
Hmm.
nonprofit, as you mentioned earlier, focused
Yep.
on literacy and giving back and volunteerism. And now we have scaled 28 years later into a nonprofit that actually distributes hundreds of thousands, millions of books across the
That's
country,
incredible.
as well
Wow.
as technology. And when we started, education was very different. Not only did the teachers approach education differently, but students as well. And now most students do have the ability to have a device that they take home or one at home. So they're one-to-one devices. And, back in 1997, technology wasn't as readily accessible and available, particularly to some of the vulnerable populations and communities we work in.
Yeah, absolutely. That accessibility is just everything. And so that brings me to my next question.
Yeah.
So you HOA impacts really over about what 2.5 million students or so and
Yes.
families, of course.
Mhm.
What does it take to lead? Do you feel, since you've been
Mhm.
doing this for so long, with both heart and scale, the nonprofit
Yeah.
world? I mean, it's tough. It's
It
tough.
it is. It is. And, I would say, Stacy, that the sector, also is often considered as a sector of scarcity. We're operating very thin in margins. We're not corporate or for profit, we're nonprofit. And
Right.
so, really, really, raising funds to do the work, and with that in mind, we started when I stepped in about 11 employees, and then have grown now to around 50 with some temporary employees too. And so, to that point in question, impacting 2.5 million children has been over the course of it's quite a bit, right?
That's
Um,
pretty substantial.
yeah, over the course of a couple decades, but what I will say is, as we've grown and the need is still here and apparent, our runway is long and our opportunity is great. Unfortunately, I wish it wasn't, and that we were able to fund education in different ways and we had excess, but we don't. And really, with the way we fund education in this country, it's based on taxes.
Yeah,
So, that
lovely
also.
Texas.
Yes, yes, and so that's a huge consideration, on how we are able to support the schools and the teachers and the districts across the country, and why there's such, disparity, in some communities. What I will
Well,
also go ahead.
no, you go ahead. I don't wanna interrupt. I will hold that thought.
Yeah. No, and because of that, we the other half of our work is transformational work, and what I mean by that is, think extreme home makeover, but school edition. And so our model is partnering with community and corporations to pull in private dollars to help fill those budget gaps.
Absolutely, yes.
And create those vibrant, modern spaces for the children and the teachers.
Well, and that was actually, it's a great segue into what I was gonna ask you, because you have really partnered with some powerhouse organizations, brands like with the NBA, Verizon,
Mhm,
Under Armour,
mhm.
and that has to, I mean, just, bring out more of the awareness, of course. What's your approach to aligning missions with those corporate sponsors?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it has to be done very thoughtfully. So
Mhm.
at Heart of America, we focus primarily on the student and access to resources and spaces. we all know that these big brands, corporations, they have headquarter markets, right?
Sure. Yep.
And they
Yep.
have markets where they have concentrations of employees. And as I mentioned previously, we make over spaces, and our team, actually, in the Heart of America team, takes it from visioning all the way to about 95% completion, and then we bring in the volunteers, hundreds and even
Mm.
thousands of Under Armour employees in Baltimore, where they're headquartered, to make a real difference in one day. And it is amazing. The
I could
transformation.
imagine. I was just gonna say that would be
Yeah.
so interesting to see that transformation. Like, you got 95% complete, they come in, and then I'm sure it's like magic, right?
Yes. And we're talking, when I we say 95% complete, it's the surrounding environment,
Mhm.
right? It's the
Right.
walls, the flooring, the new lighting, some advanced technology, furnitures, fixtures.
Mhm.
And then they come in and they put the finishing touches on. They, if it's a library, they shelve the books. They make sure that we also get resources to the student's home and education packs and additional books. They build the furniture. And the team, the Heart of America team, guides them through this process. And at the end of 4 hours, it is a completely different space. And
Well, I
we're
was
able,
gonna ask too
yeah.
with that. So they come in and they do these final finishes,
Mhm.
and how long are you working with them? Like, how do they get the agenda? Like, are you like, "This
Yeah.
is what we
Yeah.
need," and check, 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 and they're like, "We're
Yeah.
on it," or do you tell
Yeah.
them exactly, or do they use a lot of times maybe their own ideas and you approve? How does that
Yeah.
work?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it really goes back to the collaborative approach we use. So, Heart of America is not only an expert in resources for education and educational spaces, but also community activation.
Mhm.
So, we create and craft the day with them, dependent on how they want it to flow. Many times, when we partner with corporations to transform these much needed education spaces, it's because they're wanting to celebrate something. There's a big moment. Maybe they've, released a new brand or shoe. If it's Under Armour, if it is Verizon, maybe they're starting to focus on digital health and wellness. So
Okay, yeah.
we design the day according to what is really at the core of their goals and objectives, along with, first and foremost, the schools.
Right,
So
right.
we will break the teams into several different areas, and often we expand beyond maybe that one iconic space, whether it's a library or a STEM lab, even a gymnasium. We do athletic facilities too, um, and then
Like,
make
you're
sure.
really aligning both of your visions and what
Totally.
is
So
basically for them trending at the time and
yeah,
what's really at their height of priority as
exactly.
well. Yeah, so
Exactly, and some, of our partners, actually, they're all about team member engagement, showing up in the community, and bonding during that time.
mhm.
It's team
Yeah,
building, it's, you use a completely different skill set, you get behind, from behind your desk and into a
bringing
new
people
environment.
together in
Yes.
person.
Yes, and we have, some of the C-suite executives working side by side with, interns and,
Oh, nice, and a great
yeah,
opportunity
it
for that as
is, it
well.
is.
Yeah.
And what I will say is we often will work in those headquarter markets because of the team member engagement, but also because those brands and those businesses know that these are their communities, right? And
Yeah.
this is where their employees live, work, and grow, and they want their community to thrive as well. So we've seen an uptick in the last two decades of really intentional, back to your original question,
Mhm.
intentional community impact engagement on the corporate level across the country. It used to be a nice thing to do. It's actually the cost of doing business. There's an expectation now.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, and like you think of as time goes by so quickly, right? This is like the future, right? Our future generations and
Yeah,
our workforce and so much more that yeah, to really align them from the get-go is it's
right,
gotta, they're gonna remember that, right?
right, right.
So yeah, I think it's yeah, definitely the right movement and to plan for that future for sure.
Yeah, and we really, as we begin the conversation, we listen to their goals and objectives. And, if it's Under Armour, they're likely going to focus on the athletic spaces where
Hmm.
teams can come together and students can learn in a different way through athletics. If it's Verizon, and or even some of our other partners, they want to focus on STEM and STEAM. Um,
Hmm.
and so they're really focused on the sciences and really innovation in the creative space too.
Yeah.
Discovering and creating new platforms, programs. I mean, the kids these days, what they come up with is mind blowing. And I
Oh,
know
yeah, I can
it,
imagine. Yeah.
it
You
is
bring all these
just
great minds together,
yes,
and it's can be, I can imagine, so inspirational,
yeah,
and the
and
newness
that's
of it all too.
absolutely. And, I will say I'm very hopeful for the future, but we do need to keep investing in the way that Heart of America does and works with the corporate community because, again, these are our future. There are future doctors, our astronauts. Maybe there's
Absolutely.
someone that is going to cure cancer. And we don't know, and with that in mind and talking about education equity, that means more access is more opportunity, bottom line. So if we can
Absolutely.
yeah, and if we can create these amazing spaces filled with modern resources and some traditional resources that are
Sure,
still
yeah.
very important, we are setting them up for success.
Yeah,
So that is
absolutely.
very much a part of the goal and objective, team member engagement, workforce development, and really making sure that the employees of the future are critical thinkers.
Absolutely, and they have those resources. So, yeah,
Mhm.
I applaud everything that Heart of America is doing. I think it's so
Well, thank you.
needed. Yeah, yeah, I really wish everybody could just get their fingers in on that, right? And just, expose this to all of the younger generation. So,
Yeah.
let's talk about you as well, as far as you're really impressive, right? You are a graduate of Yale's Women's Leadership Program. That's pretty dynamite, and a recipient of the Driven CEO of the Year award as
Thank
well.
you.
Tell me more of, I have a question here for you. What does bold, values based leadership mean to you today? From all your experiences, how is that kind of formulated into what does that really mean to you today?
Yeah, great question, and I love the word bold. In fact, I think that it really when I think of strong women and leaders, they're bold, right? And for some, it's a given skill, for others, it's a learned skill, and
Yeah, yeah,
I
they
think
gotta study up on that a little bit.
for me, it was a combination of both. I as a early, young adult was an athlete and very driven by achievement and
I have
possibility.
to ask, what sports did you play?
I actually was a swimmer. So,
Oh, very cool.
yes.
Yes.
So you think about swimming, it's not it's more individual, but it is
It
still a
does not
team
matter. That is,
approach. And
yeah,
it's all about your individual choices and drive
yeah,
often.
for
So,
sure.
my parents, I grew up in the Midwest, sensibilities, but also curiosity, right? And so that work ethic was instilled at a very young age, through athletics and also school. And what I will say about how I've applied it in my career journey is by really pushing myself to what I call walk through doors. There are doors in your life that are open and may not be the door you think you should go through at the time or are destined to go through, but it's there. And if it makes sense, walk through it,
Well, and
right?
it's an
Like
experience, right?
exactly, because you
Good or
can
bad, it's an experience and you can learn from it.
absolutely, and you can always decide to go back and turn around too.
That's
So
right, yes.
I think
Go through another door.
yeah, exactly. And walking through those doors throughout my career has been really fascinating and challenging and exciting for me because I've gone from the public sector to private sector, now back to public sector. I've gone from nonprofits focused on science and environmental protection, which is my schooling, to nonprofit performing arts organization, and now an education equity organization. And along the line,
Which is a huge and massive undertaking, by the way.
it is,
I
but I
mean,
feel like it was my real life schooling. It really was. And to learn how to work within the sectors, the key challenges and issues of the time, and then how to navigate by creating solutions, often if you're on the nonprofit end, is an exercise in strategy, like you asked, determination, and really sometimes grit.
I
You
think
know that,
consistency too. I
yeah,
mean,
and
for
you know
sure,
that
yeah.
there is a purposeful mission in front of you, just like Heart of America right now with education. Um, we are not making the gains we need to as a country and as students. And
Agree,
so
yeah.
the runway is huge. And for me, it's all about how we're impacting in the lives that we're affecting. And so that is what continues to really push me and the organization, is the opportunity to change lives. And that's something that we can't rest on. So.
Yeah, and that brings me to my next question too. Again, what are some of the most pressing gaps that you're seeing, and how is Homeowners of America, or I'm sorry, Heart of America? Every time I say HOA, I think of Homeowners of
Yeah, you could say
Association,
HOA as well.
Heart of America. But how is Heart of America working to close those gaps? Because that
Yeah,
really is. It's just really what you were sharing. It's like
yeah.
it's so hard to really get into there.
It is, and so there's been, we work by, I would say, with head and heart. So
Yeah.
our strategies are
Well, it's so
always.
purpose driven. And
Yes,
so it's so purpose driven. So
exactly, and
anytime you have anything purpose driven like that,
yeah.
you're gonna feel these pressing gaps, right?
Yeah, and what's really important is understanding the, landscape, right? The current
Right.
environment. It is ever changing, whether you're in business, nonprofit, or even civic work. The challenges, and because we're focused on education equity, to your question, it's really about providing as many resources as we can, the right resources at the
Mm.
right time, actually, for these young learners and for teachers. If you have a classroom that is lacking in X, Y, or Z, or a library or a STEM lab, you're not going to be able to teach at an optimal level. You won't be able to inspire. The kids won't have access to some of the latest and greatest
Mhm.
technologies. And if they can't learn by doing, if they can't see it, they can't be it. Truly.
And I'm sure too, a lot of the feedback that you receive directly of the needs and the
Yeah.
wants, I'm sure that surely is taken into consideration as well.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
and let me quickly walk you through our process because it's
Love it.
fascinating.
Yes, yes, please.
We actually have a strong belief that we need to co-create solutions for communities across the country because they're so different. And who are we, Heart of America or myself, to say we think you need this?
Mhm.
So what we do is we actually begin to work. We may have a project in mind. It could be a STEM lab. It could be a health and wellness room. We've been
Mhm.
doing many mental health suites and health and wellness rooms.
And
So
that's
we
such a thing. I
It
mean, my
is,
goodness.
and we
Yeah,
can
that's
talk more
for
about that
sure.
too, because that is
Yeah.
one of the trends we're seeing,
Mhm.
but we sit down with the what we call the beneficiary, so the school, the students, the teachers,
Mhm.
and also the funder, and we start to dream and imagine. It's part of what one might call the design thinking process. So,
Well,
which
I
was
think that
developed.
vision aspect is so crucial. So
Yes,
crucial.
it
Yes.
is so crucial, and design thinking was developed out of Stanford, and it's really keeping the end user or the student in mind. So, if there's a STEM teacher that wants to teach AR, AI, or VR, uh, and or AI, let me start. If there's, if there's,
No, I get it, trust me.
oh my gosh, I if there is,
There's too many of these abbreviations
I
these
know.
days. I love it.
For instance, if there's a teacher that is interested in teaching AI or how to 3D print, AR, VR, which is, that's virtual reality. You have to design spaces in a certain way. Those are very active learning modules and modalities. And so you need to make sure that you have a space to do that.
I was gonna
And
say, I would imagine, like, the sensory of it all and the location is
exactly,
key to
exactly.
really having that
And then
successful.
yeah, and so, these labs are built for discovery and active learning, collaborating, and teamwork, but they're also used for instruction. And so there's a time and a place where you might set up the room differently because of how the teacher's using. We don't begin designing until we understand how the space is going to be used and the subject that is going to be
Yeah,
taught
right,
and the
right.
equipment. And then our designers, we have an in-house design team then start creating magic. So we start with listening, learning in a design thinking charrette form. Then we bring that into active design. The school, the students, and the funders always have last right of approval until and with the design in the space. So they're in full control. Then we bring once everything's approved and visioned to the level we're really excited and happy about, we go into production and work with area GCs and trades, often women owned and led organizations
Love it.
and yep, and also community led organizations. We really want to work with the community instead of bringing in big firms to do the work. And then from there, from that build phase, we go back to what we just described. And I shared earlier, we go back to getting it to 90% completion and then envisioning the final touches, that celebratory volunteerism and unveiling day. And it is really amazing when this all comes together. When the ribbon is cut and the teachers and the students see the room for the first time, it is like it is a
I'm
holiday.
literally picturing, like, a home
Yeah,
makeover.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So it's a very thoughtful A to Z process, and that's really why a lot of our supporters and funders also appreciate the work we do because they
Well, they're
get to
part
be
of
a part of it.
that.
It's not just
Yeah.
writing a check, it's
Yes.
sometimes bringing in the marketing team from Target, for instance,
Right, yeah.
and
They're
helping
bought
implement
in.
it. Yeah, and
They're literally
sometimes
bought
we
in.
co-design with the funders as well, Verizon, Target, many organizations we've worked with throughout the years, we try and maximize not only the on-site event day volunteerism, but pro bono work
Yeah,
too.
I bet. And so when you mention students, what is the age? Like, what's the youngest age that you see?
Yeah, so we at Heart of America believe that your like learning never stops, right? We
Right.
just talked about my
Until
career
the
and
day we
walking
die.
through yeah, walking through doors, learning new focuses and sectors. And that's the same with teaching too. And learning in general. And so we um primarily focus on K through 12 and public schools, but as we've been doing the work, and particularly before COVID and after COVID, we
Well, I'm
really
glad you just mentioned that because you said public
yeah,
schools. Because I was gonna ask as well, is
mhm,
this more of the public school
it
system,
is.
or are you also, within the private schools as well?
Yeah,
Glad
we
you mentioned
focus
that.
yeah, thanks for asking. It's a really important question, and we focus
Yeah.
on primarily private and then charter often. Um, we find if you're assessing the landscape of education, private schools are usually more well-resourced, and so we really focus on the low income and actually most vulnerable communities. So the
Makes
families
sense.
living in
Yeah.
poverty. And those often correlate to going to the public through the public school system.
Right,
But
right.
we also have learned through watching the K through 12 kind of progression as a kindergartner all the way up through high school because we do early childhood spaces and discovery spaces. It's not just high school, middle school, or even elementary. That a child and a learner progresses in learning from the home to the school setting. And then if they're doing after school programs, which often in need families have two working parents or one working parent. And so those students need additional activities and engagement. And so we call that out of school time. So the education continuum is those three
So after
areas.
school,
It's
right.
how, yeah, the home learning environment, the school learning environment, and then the out of school learning environment. And that's also like summer times and breaks. That
Right.
said, we are actively working with boys and girls clubs in the areas where we're also working on the schools so that we create and connect the dots across the learning paradigm and pipeline. So if I was one student walking through the school day, I go from my home to the school, and then I go to maybe a boys and girls club or girls inc
Yeah,
afterwards.
it's bringing me, like, YMCA vibes from back in the
Mhm,
'80s, like,
mhm.
or, those clubs where there's, you have that support and a
Yeah.
little bit of leadership, and yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I think
Yes.
that's yeah, so it
It's the
definitely has
it's
evolved
the
into something
yeah.
pretty dynamite.
It's the wraparound services that are really
Yeah,
needed often for the most vulnerable families and the families in need, because they might not have an extended family system that, a grandma or an auntie that could take the kids afterwards. So it's really important as we think about developing our communities and even community layout and planning, how those pathways work.
well, the
Um,
peace of mind it has to give to so many
yeah,
parents too.
yeah, yeah, and if you're creating a state-of-the-art STEM club, or state-of-the-art STEM space, you want also consistency if we can make this magic happen of it being in middle school to high school as well. So
Yeah,
there's not a gap,
so that transition, it really
for the
flows
pipeline.
nicely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And, we just yesterday opened an aerospace lab in St. Paul, Minnesota, at a high school,
Well,
and
it's funny you said that because we were talking about the children before, like, you just don't know, they could be the next astronaut, they could and I was thinking they could be
yes,
the next Elon Musk, and then you just mentioned the
yeah,
aerospace.
yeah, and it's
You
so
never
true. I
know.
mean, this lab, which was sponsored by 3M, and they're very focused. They have an aerospace division. They're focused on STEM and research and development of product. These are the types of labs that start to create those minds, right?
Mhm.
And not only for the 3M workforce, but for again, like aerospace and flight. We had over 12 actual flight simulators that we put in the space that pilots going to college or going through a
Wow.
certification use. And so this is a public school in a low income area, and they're being exposed because of this great and innovative thinking and funding to things that not many across the country do. And
Well,
it's
for these
produced. Yeah,
yes, and for these children, these students, where their mind really gravitates towards, and maybe this is something they would have never had the opportunity to really explore, and
yeah.
now here they have it, and, I mean, just big things could come from that, and
100%. And you really underscored just the whole existence of Heart of America, and that is access to
mhm,
great equipment, learning spaces, and teachers too. So if you have a well-resourced space and a great learning environment and a great teacher, that's the perfect trifecta to unlock the greatest learning potential. And these kids sit in school for 8 hours a day, and so do the
mhm.
teachers. One thing I'll share with you, which is why we know Heart of America right now has such a big opportunity in front of it, and we're the only nonprofit of our kind in the country,
Wow.
that's doing work like this within the four walls, right? Um, we have if schools were primarily built in this country in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, 80s as well, but that was when the majority of the infrastructure was built. It's over 50 years old, and it is in some cases not well maintained. There's not enough money, we talked about earlier
Of
in our
course.
conversation, for
Right.
education. And often, rightfully so, schools and districts will put resources behind teachers because they are such a crucial part of the puzzle. but the facilities and the maintenance even is bottom of the rung or list, unfortunately. So
Mhm.
with our public-private model with Heart of America and our funding partners, like I said, we help to close that gap. But this inventory of buildings is not going away, and there's not enough money on any level, federal, state, local,
Right.
to
That they're
rebuild
prioritizing.
everything.
Right.
Yeah, and so we also have to think about how can we reimagine pre-existing buildings, and that's where our work comes in, as well. We'll work with a school district and say, "Okay, so where are some of your new school buildings being built?" So we understand that's happening here, but they've got an inventory of 30 plus school buildings that need, updating,
That are
renovation,
maybe
and
run
maintenance
down
now.
and right, right.
Yes,
You have the
now.
actual core there, and that was gonna be a question
Yeah.
I meant to ask you earlier, um, because reading into this when I was preparing, last week for our podcast, I was thinking that these rooms were basically classrooms in the existing school, but they don't have to be. They're buildings out. Are they always a building that's nearby the school, or do you ever also use the existing school,
Oh, absolutely.
or a little bit of both?
It's a little bit of both. As we grew as an organization, we were working almost 99% in the K through 12 older buildings and
Mhm.
reimagining the spaces, bringing a hope because as I said, the inventory of schools is so long that a lot of these schools by the time it's their turn and there's enough money, it's 5 to 10 years down the
Oh,
road.
wow.
And
Yeah.
these kids in schools need it now. So instead of
Yeah.
skipping generations of students, we pull in and we may do one iconic space in the school that is used by everyone, like a really advanced innovation and tech lab, or it could be a library, it could be a health and wellness. And we also call them peace and meditation rooms where students can actually and teachers go and recharge, decompress, and
Like,
even
even
work.
during school, like,
Yes,
the school hours.
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Because 'cause I'm thinking, like, for
post-COVID,
convenience, right? Having
yeah.
everything right there.
And can you imagine being a teacher on 8 hours a day? You have to be able to recharge to be an inspiring teacher. Students, same thing. They are learning 8 hours a day, and if it's in a, like, vanilla bean drab room with, no opportunity to go into another environment and maybe recharge and rest,
Like, it's
it's
something they look forward to.
it
Yeah, it's
is,
something
it
they may
is.
look forward to because 'cause they're not going to have the opportunity anytime soon at the end of the day, when they
Yeah.
leave school.
Yeah, and mental health challenges across the country are increasing. And so it allows the student to actually, if they're having a moment where they need to just reset, go and do that instead of leaving the school building. Because as soon as they leave the school building, if they're a younger student, it becomes a hardship for the working parent. If they are an older student, that is when a lot of times there's a little mischief happening and they're not learning. So the goal is to keep them in the school building and create these spaces where they can really work through things, and sometimes it's with other students too.
Yeah,
We've
and have it
seen these
streamlined to
spaces
where it's
use, yeah, in so many ways. And I will share the WNBA and the MBA really are focused on making sure that our youth have spaces and resources in and around mental health.
Does
Um,
does Heart of America also include in that, mentorship
yeah,
programs?
that's a great question. So what we do, because I'm a firm believer, and this is how I've grown the organization and continue to push us to the next level. And we're about to announce a bold goal in the before the end of the year, and so that goes back to your word of bold. It's a
Yeah, I
continued
love that
growing
word,
edge.
right?
Yeah,
Pretty
and
powerful.
yeah. So we we would love to do it all, but we also know we can't do it all and
Sure.
maybe shouldn't do it all. So, in these communities that we work, we often are connected and we seek out some of the best nonprofits or programs that provide programming and curriculum and mentors. We also encourage the corporate volunteers to think about coming back to the school they just transformed. And that
Mm.
is another huge piece of the sustainability model, is that it's not a one and done. Once the ribbon is cut,
There's still a
these
lot of work ahead.
there's still a lot of work ahead,
Mhm.
and those community members and corporate members remember that. And sometimes they go back to the same school and continue improving little by little. Sometimes they go back and mentor. And so Heart of America, I say we stay in our lane, which is resources and inspiring learning environments, but then we bring in other partners to
It's like you bring it
create.
full circle,
Yes, yeah,
literally, yeah.
exactly. It
So I
takes
know
a
that
village.
it does, it takes a village, and I think too, like you said, those companies to be able to return back, at a later date and to see, the fulfillment of all of this, I mean, that has to be motivating for them as well. I know it would be me as a
Oh,
CEO. If I
yes.
put if I've supported any type of organization to literally go back and see it time and time again and just watch it grow and flourish,
Oh,
I mean, it's a feel-good story, right?
it's
And
so
we
rewarding, and,
yeah, yeah.
in some of our the work and communities we do, for instance, we have athletic teams that have, adopted schools even, and
Yeah.
so then we work with a program and put together a strategy for them. Okay, for the first year, we should do this, and then this space next, and it's all based on, if you only have enough support to do one space, what is the space that is the most impactful? Is it a research space? Is it a discovery space? Is it a learning space like a library? So
It's really a
um,
win-win
it is.
for
It
all parties,
is.
for sure.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing. The schools, the students, the teachers, even having those employees. And sometimes, we'll work with baseball teams and football teams. And, again, we mentioned the WNBA. Having those employees and sometimes the athletes come and work in their school s t shows them, tells them, without even saying it, that they're important.
Well,
And
for sure, and
often. Yeah.
I was just I
No.
was envisioning too, like, so many, let's just say an athlete, it could be a professional athlete, it could be a college athlete, whoever it may be, that have also maybe they grew up in a broken system, right?
Right.
So
Right.
they wanna give
Absolutely.
back, as
Yeah.
well.
There's a reason some of the most iconic athletes, and I can think of one particularly right now, LeBron James. I mean, he has
Mhm.
built schools.
Yeah, absolutely.
He
Yeah.
and then Steph Curry is, changing and transforming the Oakland school system, and
Right,
that
right.
is
I
that
mean, look
is
at Deion Sanders. I mean, there's just
yes,
so many in the
yes,
public eye that are doing great things.
yeah, and it's often schools, but it's also part of the learning continuum pipeline. Sometimes it's boys and girls clubs too that have
Yeah,
changed their lives and made a difference, and so they're investing
absolutely.
in that.
Well, like
So
you said before, it's like all these resources, the more the
mhm,
merrier that we can bring together
yep.
and that, that Heart America can really touch and it's just every day is making a difference, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I really feel that our work is more than just, transforming physical spaces, it's transforming
Mhm.
lives, and when I say that, it's really about providing opportunities for community members to give back. It's in a key focus area of need, education. Every community is focused on education. It is synonymous. And quite frankly, the more we can ensure that the workforce of tomorrow and students of today are learning the right skills, communication,
Mhm.
problem solving, critical thinking, collaboration. We
Ownership,
know ownership,
taking
yes,
ownership, yes.
thrive and fail forward even. Like it is
Yes.
okay to not have the first whatever you're making. It could be a little, car or something to
Sure.
not work perfectly. That's
Right.
part of the learning process. And so again, we're providing an opportunity for many to come along with us. We even have trades and GCs and landscaping companies say, we want to help out too, and we're going to do this pro bono or donate. And so
Yeah.
then we're also able to force multiply. For instance, a space that might cost, um, you know, fair market value to transform of $250,000, like
Mhm.
for an advanced technology lab for
Sure.
sure. We can deliver it at $150,
Wow.
because of our model and
Yeah,
bringing others along. So it's really
that's
about
amazing.
being
Yeah.
better together.
It's really that community like you were saying.
Mhm.
I know your work also has been featured in, gosh, everywhere. Reading it was so accomplished here and so impressive. But from Forbes to the, Aspen Institute, um, how do you stay grounded and connected to the students and the communities that you serve? I mean, clearly
Yeah,
I'm sure just
yeah.
the purpose driven. I mean, I can just by talking to you, I see your passion behind all of this, and obviously, no wonder why you have been this is going strong yourself.
Oh, thank
With
you.
with Heart of America since '97. But it's do you ever feel burnout? Do you ever think, oh my gosh, or
No,
do you feel just inspired, like, wow, this is
I
incredible?
I go through it all,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
think
I guess
I
we are
think
human, right?
yes, and leaders, of today that are leading authentically and with transparency, um, do share often. And, we just came out of a really busy season. The month of June, we transformed over 25 spaces and or
Are
campus.
all of your spaces like how many states are you in here in America?
We work in almost all 50 states, some more than others,
Sure.
and into Canada, actually.
Oh, wow.
We're
Okay.
developing a program right now with the Professional Women's Hockey League, which I'm very excited about.
You guys are gonna have to
Um,
change it to Heart of the World pretty soon.
I know, right? And so, we do touch, and impact, again, almost all, 50 states. We've worked in Puerto Rico as well. And to your earlier question of, just keeping the energy, self-care is
Mhm.
really important. And, I probably need to do a better job of it, but
You might have to go use one of their rooms,
yeah,
maybe one of their
exactly. I need my
thinking
own,
rooms.
which yeah, exactly. But I think what's important as a leader is to be vulnerable and share too when you may be in a space that is challenging and or your energy is low because you just came off a busy season or a
Right.
busy project. And so we just finished a leadership summit yesterday with all of my LT and leadership team. And it's really about us supporting one another and holding
Right.
hands. We operate as because we're growing so much and so fast, more as a startup, in a very entrepreneurial mindset. And so that in itself can be exhausting. So we
Yeah,
try
for
and pace
sure. Yeah.
ourselves.
It's a very
And
fast-paced world we live in now, right?
it is. And so how do you really continue to motivate the team, pull out that passion? This is, they've chosen to be here because they want to work on these issues. But at the same time, knowing there's so much potential work ahead, how do you like cadence the
That's
growth? How
right.
do you
Yeah.
cadence the projects
Right.
and really listen to each other as well?
Yeah.
And
They
and
say you
that is
can't pour
crucial.
from an empty cup, right? So in order to
It's
motivate others, you have to feel motivated, right?
absolutely,
And definitely, yeah.
absolutely. And one of those key things for me is getting to see a project. And like I said, with the aerospace space lab opening a couple days ago, you not only feel like so excited for the school and the students, but you feel a sense of pride and
Yeah.
just awe in a way.
What is
And
your
it's
favorite stage of it all?
that's
Like
a great
finding a
question.
location or finding
Yeah.
the sponsor supporters or the end result when you're cutting that ribbon. I know
Hmm.
it's all
It's a great
exciting.
question, Stacy. It's a great question. I'm gonna say I love it all, but I
Yes.
think I think for me it is actually finding the spaces. Sometimes we know the school immediately. Sometimes we have maybe 3 we have to go and what we call site visit, meet the leadership, understand the building and the opportunity, and really see the school community. And we also know from our work historically that leadership on the principal level is so important. And if you have a good leader and and that has a vision and that's really pushing forward, whatever you invest in that school, whether it's resources or transforming a space, will be maintained well, which
Mhm.
is really important. And that is also
Right.
another part of why we include students in the design because it becomes their
It's
space.
their yeah, it's their
They
space.
create
They
it.
are a part of it, right.
Yep.
It's just really no difference. It's just the involvement, as if you're
Mhm.
running a team of whether it's work or whatever it is, and people can put it in their thoughts and their
Yeah.
suggestions, and then you apply that towards the goal. It's
Mhm.
it's it's just a win-win, and it makes them feel so much more involved as it should, right?
Yeah.
Because
They're
we need our
invested.
yes, you're invested, and we need our people around us to be able to accomplish big things, right? So, well, this
Absolutely.
has been so much fun. I love to end it on more of a personal note with some rapid fire questions.
Great.
That it's more
Bring
all
it.
about you. Yes, these are fun. These are so much fun.
I love being
Um,
on the hot seat.
yes, yes. I'm putting you on the hot seat. President from Heart America on the hot seat. All right. And they're fun. So here's a few. Are we ready?
Yes.
All right. The first one is, do you prefer to delegate or you want to do it all yourself? And it's again, I say this, I think every time I host an episode here is I feel like I know the answers because now after we've talked for a while and I've gotten to know more about you, I'm like, I know what she's going to answer. Sometimes I'm wrong though. So,
All
all
right.
right, so delegate or would you just rather do it yourself?
Early in my career, I would have done it myself. Now I delegate.
Delegate, delegate, delegate. Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yep.
I'm one for one on that one. Okay. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Night owl.
Night owl. Okay, okay.
Mhm. Yep.
What's one thing on your desk that you cannot live without?
Hmm. A good pen to write with.
That is so true. I have to have my pen and my sticky notes.
Exactly.
Um, so this is I always love this question. Who's a woman that you admire in business?
I
I'm sure there's probably so many.
There's
So trying
so
to sum up
many.
to
There's
one
so
is
many.
probably quite
In
challenging.
business and in life, Jane Goodall.
Okay. Okay. Nice. Nice.
Yep.
Um, what would you tell your 20-year-old self today? What would you tell your 20-year-old self?
I would say that you will come into your own and you will realize that you can do it. And
Yeah.
when I say that, I mean, I I am a firm believer if you have the right team and you have, if you're bold, you'll figure it out.
There's that bold
Make a
again.
difference. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. Yeah. Learn a
You
little
will come into
patience, right?
yes, but that for me was learned. And,
I think I'm still learning that
yeah,
in my
exactly. And
50s.
we still have to push ourselves, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, it's, have
I think
patience.
that's that's
You'll
great.
develop in a way you would
Keep
never
your
have
eye on the
guessed.
prize, right? Just
Yeah,
consistency. I think is so important.
yes.
Last but not least, what is one word to describe your leadership? So one word that you can think of.
I would say passion. We've said that
Yeah.
word, a lot, throughout. It's passion, and with the passion comes the ability to inspire and motivate and bring people along into that passion and vision, which is so important when you're a leader in general.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you don't have the vision, if you can't articulate it, if you can't see it, your team will have a hard time seeing it as well.
I
And
agree. That
yeah,
passion really is that extra push to make all those
passion.
things possible. Yeah, passion's everything, everything. Actually, I have one more question for you. This wasn't on my rapid fire question, but what is one piece of advice that you would give to other women who are really wanting to lead with purpose
Mhm.
and especially those looking to create maybe their own company or a change or a business or whatever it may be, but somebody who is kind of on that edge to where maybe they're
Mhm.
afraid to leave a corporate setting and they want, but what is one piece of advice you would give to women who are on that cusp?
I would say go for it. And what I mean by that, and it seems almost sophomoric, but
No,
it's
no.
you have to believe in yourself, and you also have to know that you will learn and grow with new opportunities. And I often see women leaders, and I've had to coach many to say, do not self eliminate. If you want to do something, if
Mm,
you want to start something, if you
love
want to
that.
apply for a new job, so often we'll evaluate the job description or the requirements and say, I only meet 75, so I'm not, this isn't for me, or I
Right.
wouldn't even be considered. Men, on the other hand, will meet only 50%, 50%, and they'll be like, I've got this.
They'd be
This
like,
is my
I
job.
know it all. I got
Yeah,
this. I'm the
exactly.
perfect person for this role. As a
Yeah,
matter of fact, maybe I'm overqualified.
exactly. And so I think it's a mindset of belief and knowing that we are curious individuals and leaders and women, and we've had to do a lot over the course of our evolution,
We sure
juggling,
have. We're
raising
still
children.
fighting, but
Yes,
but we've come
and
a long way.
we have come a long way. So never self eliminate. Let someone else tell you no. Don't say no to yourself. I say that to my children too, whether it's applying for colleges or next
Yeah.
phase in their life would be a job. If it's interesting to you, go for it.
Believe in
You never
yourself.
know. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
for sure,
And
for
if
sure.
you don't apply for it, or if you don't go for it, you have told yourself no from the at the very
'Cause
beginning. So
then
you've
right, you've
eliminated the
already lost.
possibility. Yeah,
Right, right,
yep,
right. You really have nothing to lose until you try, and
nothing.
I think it's so important. Well, this has been so much fun, and
Well,
thank you so
likewise.
much for
Stacy, it's been amazing.
spending it's been great, and Jill, I mean, I'll tell you, you are definitely your passion shines through, and Heart of
Well,
America is so lucky to have you as, their president for so many years, and,
thank you.
congratulations to them, to you, and you're doing amazing things. So thank you again so much.
Of course, and you'll have to come check it out too.
Oh,
So
totally.
it would
Yes, I
be
would
amazing.
love to. I would love
Yeah.
to. Yes, definitely would
Yes.
love to explore
Yes.
that for sure. So thank
All
you
right.
so much. Thanks.